thank you, Michael, for sending the electronic copy. You'll see the summary of our workshop that we had on September 8th, the second of 2 workshops. And so you can see that we had decided to put our activities that we had identified as priorities into the 4 categories that have been used in the past to define the goals. So you can see that we have policy, budget, strategic planning, and communication with a goal statement, an objective, and then the activities. What I handed out this evening to you was putting the same exact information into an action plan format. We had discussed, and that's the table, we had discussed coming up with an action plan. So I started to populate some of the fields around what the strategy of the action was, and that is the activities that we identified. Who would be the persons responsible? How would we measure our success? And then we need to, as a group, the school committee needs to identify what will be the due dates for each of these activities, so that when we measure our success, we're also taking a look at the timeliness of our actions. And then there's a little timeline schematic off to the right where we can put our X's in that indicate the months that, or a month that we will dedicate toward achieving that goal. So tonight we were going to discuss how would we go about filling out this action plan.
Right, and I would like to point out that this is a different way of approaching the goals than we have in the past. We're staying within the recommended guidelines by the Mass Association of School Committee with the 4 major four major goal areas, but we're changing what in the past was we'd have basically a laundry list of goals. And many of them we couldn't get to, and they just would say continued year after year after year. And at some point, it almost becomes useless to have some of those on the list because we just don't get to them, and they get put aside. So I think what we've done here is we've come up with 5 major goals, but under that are going to be a lot of activities that enable us to work toward achieving those goals. And I just think it's going to be a more functional way of approaching how we set and achieve goals for the school committee. So the first goal was the policy goal, and there are really 3. Are there 3 under here?
3 activities.
Yes, 3 strategies or actions. One is to continue with the systematic review of the policy manual. The second is to review and update the policy on bullying, which was a new policy we implemented probably 18 months ago, but now must be updated as a result of the state law passed, correct? And the final one is identify additional priority policies to be reviewed this year. Kathy, on the first one, what we used to do that worked is to pick out a couple sections of the policy manual and say we're going to review and update and revise as necessary these 2 sections this year.
And didn't David have like a cycle of
well, that's
which ones
right.
rotate? Yeah.
Right, but I think we haven't done that probably for the last few years at least. I know we didn't do it when Keith was here, and I don't think we did it the last year that David was here.
No, well, I mean, there were a couple of policies that came up.
Right, but we didn't.
But we didn't do a systematic.
Right.
No, definitely not.
There were 3 or 4 policies that came up
Right.
that needed to have some
addressed.
action be addressed.
Correct.
And we developed those policies.
Right.
And that's what we did, is
Right.
develop policies.
More reactive.
It was very reactive,
Yes.
but, as
I think
it
it's
turns
been 6
out,
or
it
7
was
years
about all
now.
that we could do.
Well, I did it.
Did you do it when
I
you
think
first
it
came
might
on?
have been the first or second year I was
Okay.
on. We did. We revised 2 or
sections.
3 sections.
Yeah.
You might check with Ann because Ann probably has somewhat of a handle on
See
this.
if there is, in fact, a list.
And this has come up on the listserv, the MASC listserv, a couple of school districts. One school district was going to hire some
to do it.
to come in and pay $15,000 to review and revise their policies, and I'm like, no, that's what the school committee's supposed to do.
That's
I'd
like
pay
one of the
$15,000 to
basic-
have them come in and do it, to be honest with you. I mean,
Yeah, but you're not on the committee, so you don't have to worry
to
about
do
it.
the goals.
So if
Are we
So-
voting ourselves a salary now? Is that what you're telling me?
no, that won't go anywhere. So I think we ought to probably talk to Ann, and then we ought to start systematically reviewing. We reviewed for everything, for grammar, for language, for appropriateness, for updating. Some of the things may be out of date, and it just doesn't make any sense.
Sure.
Just a simple thing. There is a lot of referrals to the superintendent that talk about he.
Mhm.
So we either need to make that she, he, or she, or, I mean, that's just a simple thing, but.
She
Or the
or
superintendent.
he.
Or the superintendent, right. So if we can start that, and I think that, in terms of a completion date for that, that should be like an April timeframe before the town election. I think that's, because that's a whole year project. That's a,
I agree.
You
Gives
know.
us enough time.
But this is that's something that can, well, not much is gonna happen in July and August.
Right.
So, but
I-
that,
I would say
that's
May.
That's a continuum,
right, it's a
isn't it?
continuum
I
from.
mean, that's a continuum
right,
for
from September
years
through
until done.
right, through May. But there's never a completion date per se. It's just that we should get 2 or 3 sections done a year.
Mhm.
We really should.
Now, do you think this project is a whole committee project or just the policy subcommittee? Because this is a lot of work.
Policy subcommittee.
It's the policy subcommittee, but if they want to ask for help
I'd
in
be happy
reading
to
policy,
read-
I'd be
read
happy
whole
to also
sections if you
read
wanna
whole
assign
sections.
something to me.
I've got a boring life, and
Well,
I'd like to fill it with some things.
You get an opportunity to read them when they come forward to the whole committee.
Right.
Oh, right, I'm
But
just
I-
saying if there's a
But
lot.
I'd be
Large
willing to,
manual.
I'd be willing to participate just to get more of this done.
You'll notice, excuse me, under information, I have subcommittee schedules. I'm going to ask tonight for the committee to set the first organizational meeting for the policy subcommittee, the communication subcommittee, and the evaluation. And at the policy subcommittee, we'll take a look at where we are in the cycle of review, identify what those sections are,
Okay.
bring that information back to the committee of the whole, and then periodically, as those sections are completed, they come back here for your first and your second reading, as you
Right.
well know. So you'll all have an opportunity to enjoy reading the policies. as
Some of
they're
those you can
reviewed.
tell just by the dates on them when they were last
Right.
revised.
And that's
I mean,
what we'll
some of
end
them
up
are gonna be back in
doing.
the 80s, some of them will be more,
Right.
obviously.
Some
more
haven't been
recent.
revised since like 1988.
Yeah.
I mean, they're, and they may not need it.
That's current.
Right.
Before I went to high school, nice.
That's current. It's like yesterday.
But I would, and then when you do come back after your first meeting, if Karen or I, we want to volunteer to take on a section, we can
Happy
do
to.
that at that time.
Happy
Yeah.
to.
So that should be an ongoing, that doesn't have a set date other than,
Well, when we identify the sections
Right,
that
then
need to
we'll-
be reviewed,
right,
if you want the section review done, however many sections are identified, identifying that if you want them done by April or by May,
Right.
that gives us
right,
an end, and then we backwards plan from there.
okay.
So you had mentioned April, is it still April?
I think May, we probably should say
May?
May, yeah,
Okay,
before the elections.
Well, the election's the first week of May.
Are they? So it would be
I'd say by the end of
just
April.
by the end of
May
April,
1st or
yeah,
whatever.
May 1st,
By
May
May
1st,
1st,
May
yeah.
1st, May Day. Then the bullying policy, I think we should get to that one right away, correct?
I
We
agree.
have
Done
to get
by
to
the
that,
end of December.
correct. That's the state,
So that should be a priority.
so that should be a
That's
priority, we should
December.
set
So
mid-December
policy
to get it
really,
done,
Needs to come forward by the end of November.
okay? And
It
approved by
At the
mid-December,
latest.
right?
We got 2 meetings in December,
So
first
the-
and second reading.
Right, so we gotta approve it by,
Should
Is
be
it-
ready by November.
right, should be ready end of November, approved by a second meeting in
It needs
December.
to be done by the end of October, and I'll tell you why. It needs to be part of the plan, and we have to send the plan out to public hearing. So the plan has to go out for public
What
comment.
plan is, this is,
This is the bullying plan that we have to develop for the Department of Elementary and Secondary
in
Education.
addition to a
Yep.
policy,
Yes, the
Okay.
policy lays the foundation, and then a plan has to be developed with specific elements that have been identified that need to be included. We're in the process of putting together that plan now. Patrick is working on a prototype. It will go to PAWS is going to be the task force that we are mandated to have, and because this district already was proactive in that area, we have a task force already established. Karen, you'll be contacted very soon and asked
Oh,
to
no,
sit
I'm
in.
already on the committee.
Oh, okay, good. And then we have to put that plan out to public comment. So we want to make sure we provide plenty of time for that plan
do
to
we have to
be
have a public
available.
hearing for it?
We don't
Or-
necessarily have to have a public hearing, but we have to provide a venue for people to make comments.
So the
So we can
website.
put it on the web, and we can have people make comments and get those comments, take them back to the task force, have them reviewed, revise the plan as needed, and then submit the plan.
And I think the policy that we did is, we're in pretty good shape, because I think that encompasses a lot
I
of what,
think
we were
we're
ahead
in
of the
pre-
state.
I think we're ahead of the state,
Yeah.
but You've
Actually,
gotta
I've
have
already reviewed
every,
it, so,
Okay,
that's
good.
part of
got
my
the-
dissertation.
you've got to have every bell and whistle
Right,
on it.
right.
There have been recommendations that have come out from several law firms as to, what really needs to be included, and it has very legalistic language included in it, in terms of it being a policy.
So are you saying that we need to approve that by mid-October, because we have to do 2 readings, which means,
No, I'm saying by the end of October, or the very beginning of November. We can make that the last piece we put in the plan to go out to bid.
Policy is actually very consistent with the current law, but there are some areas that need to be totally
right,
redone
very done, yeah.
and added because of the additional language on cyberbullying and defining
Right.
that very specifically.
Right,
There are also some jurisdiction issues which we need to address in the policy. I'd actually suggest that I do I've already reviewed it and already made changes to it to see sort of what areas need to be fixed as part of my doctoral work, so I'd be happy to take that on. I know that's a deviation from the policy subcommittee, but since I'm already doing it, I'd be happy to just give you what I have to the committee, and then you could continue it. Would that be okay?
All right, take
Certainly
anything
okay
from
with me.
anybody.
right.
That's fine with me.
I'm
Okay
easy.
with me.
And I think,
Excellent.
so I think we should, whatever the 2 meetings are in, the second meeting October, first reading, first meeting in November, second reading, and approval.
If we can get the policy subcommittee to meet within the next couple of weeks.
If Karen submits all of her, whatever she's done already to the
And we need
policy
to take a look
subcommittee.
at what we've also received from legal.
Right.
And take a look at, and the administrative council has already taken a look at the policy as well, and compared it to what we have received from Bob Frazier, who is a lawyer, who presented to the administrative council at a workshop for principals, because principals have a high level of responsibility around the implementation of this plan and the oversight of the policy and the plan in the schools. I'm sure we can come up with something rather quickly, but it's quite lengthy. The recommendations for what are to be included in this policy really exceed what's typical in a school committee policy. It takes a look at roles and responsibilities. It takes a look at the investigation procedure. It takes a look at what you're going to do in terms of consequences, and that's all very specific.
It
Yeah,
is
see, I think
very-
what we did was
Not
we,
quite 2,000 pages, but it's,
I think what we did was when we did our policy, we said we also had the rules and regulations that weren't part of the policy, but it said refer it to guidelines, so we're gonna have to put those all in the policy now,
That's what's being suggested.
to make sure we.
That's correct.
They're
Cover
just in
everything.
there, and instead
It's
of
about
just saying, see, whatever, I mean, we
pages.
need to really be explicit.
Yeah.
So,
I think our
if-
policy now is 2 pages, isn't
I'm
it?
actually proud of us, we went pretty far in the first
Yeah, we did.
policy,
We did.
we were ahead
Yeah.
of the curve
Yeah.
in a
You
lot
were
of
ahead of
ways.
the curve.
Yeah, we were.
You have about 2 to 3 weeks to get this done.
I'll be done with my, I actually would like the legal language that, if you could forward that to me, Kathy, that would be great. And I'll just start incorporating it and track changes, and then I'll have it available for,
That'd be great, and
Liz
if
and
Karen
Mike.
could get that to the subcommittee before the next meeting, before their
absolutely.
meeting, and then hopefully we'll be close at that time.
Yeah.
Okay, so should we put a deadline of early November for
Yes.
completion? Then you have identify additional priority policies to review this year. One question I have on the priority policies, didn't the state pass, and I know we have a policy on nutrition, but didn't the state pass some nutrition bill late in the session? I know I saw something related to nutrition.
There were a couple of articles in the Globe that highlighted obesity as an issue,
No, but
but I don't think there was anything,
really?
no, I don't think
Because
so.
I saw the governor sign something, but I'm not exactly sure what it was.
They did. I don't know anything about it other than that on the sub-web page of the DESC, on the nutrition page, it says that information will be provided to districts early in the fall.
So that may be another policy we have to change, because I think we have one, don't we? In terms of soda and the soda machines, don't we have a policy that addresses all of that?
Yes, that was 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
those-
So we may already, again, we may be ahead of the game there, but it's just something to be on the lookout for, that we may have to revise that policy.
If you find that, could you send around a link for?
Sure.
I know I'm giving you lots of homework.
No, not a problem.
Are there other policies that we know right now that we have to, I mean, we've already worked on the, I always forget not the illegal substance, but the
Alcohol and substance abuse.
substance abuse policy, so that, that we're done.
It might be part of the agenda for the policy subcommittee to
To
think
come up with
about
those.